Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. My name's Luke. Thanks for joining me on my journey to grow mentally, spiritually, financially, and physically, as well as documenting my progress along the way so I can give the most relatable and practical advice. Without further ado, let's get into today's video. Alright, so this is part 2 of kind of my Rich Dad Poor Dad series of like going through them, the chapters after I read the book. This is chapter 2, kind of taking a deep dive into my thoughts, reflections, and some applications of how I can use it in my real world and my everyday life. So let's get started with the first one. Alright, the first little nugget from chapter 2 is that financial intelligence is what solves the problems and allows money to come into your life. But money without financial intelligence is soon gone. And you're like, well, duh. But what this made me think of is that it comes down to wisdom and identity. And identity is a big one. I'm going to make a video about it at some point, probably after I finish this series on Rich Dad Poor Dad I'm going through. But, identity, like, good way to think of it is you won't be paid a penny more than what you think you're worth. And just how strong your identity can be, and what your self-thoughts are, and how it reflects on the rest of the world. Another big part of this book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, is this thought that the rich acquire assets while the poor and middle class acquire liabilities. And I didn't really think that this applied to me much because I wasn't going to buy a house anytime soon, which is one of the key examples of what a liability is. Anything that costs money is taken away from you and takes a lot of work and effort. But then I was just like, I'm not necessarily spending a lot of money now, but what am I spending my time doing? Is there certain people that I spend time with that are liabilities, or things that I focus on that are not giving back? And just asking myself, what are the liabilities in my life now? Alright, this third nugget from chapter 2 is pretty good, kind of self-explanatory, but it's that money often makes obvious our tragic human flaws, putting a spotlight on what we don't know. And that just makes sense. Money will show our weaknesses. What we spend our money on will show a lot about you. And when it says money often makes obvious our tragic human flaws, it just goes to show kind of your inner motives in a way are expressed in how you spend your money. So you can tell a lot about a person if you look at their money chart, their kind of balance sheet it talks about in this book, and where that flows to. This next point is a really good one. I like it a lot. I might make a video more in depth about it, and that's kind of like the topic of this one is more the school system. It says school produces employees, not employers. Now, that's a pretty obvious, simple quote, but if you think, most jobs that are needed to support the economy or the government are jobs where you kind of need to be told what to do, be a good follower, and school kind of primes you for that. Very few jobs are ones where you have to think for yourself, become a business owner, something like that. And school doesn't necessarily prepare you for those things. Now, that's definitely true in some ways, but also I'm not hating on school completely. There's definitely some good things. Education is not bad, but the system can be a little corrupt at times. Now, this next one I don't necessarily really agree with, but it says in the book, like it or not, money tells the score of your game, and the financial statement, your financial statement, is like the scorecard, which is kind of true, but that depends on what you're scoring the game on. If you're just scoring the game of life on money, then sure, yeah, that's correct. But being successful or having a successful life, to me, is a lot more than just what's in the bank account. And also what someone else thinks successful life is different than what I think it is. So that's one thing I don't really agree with in this book. It's really, money focused. Like, if you're not making a lot of money, then what you're doing, like, doesn't matter. Like, come on, hop on it. I'm definitely not trying to be like soft or whatever, like, money doesn't matter, just, be kind and stuff. It does, and I'm still gonna, try to improve my finances and stuff, but it's not the end all be all. This next little point from Rich Dad Poor Dad chapter 2 is pretty good. It says most people, because their balance sheets are not balanced and they got liabilities that they pay for, and they because of this, they can't pursue deals of a lifetime when they pop up. And what that kind of means, if you're always, struggling and working hard and, paying your liabilities, you can't do other things to that could get you out of like the rat race. So it's just allocating your resources, which are, time, money, what else, mostly just time and money, how you spend those things, and allocate them. And if they're tied up in liabilities, whether that's like an actual, in this book it gives an example of like a house or something like that, or your money's tied up in some other people that are liabilities to your life and your growth, then because your resources are allocated to something different, you can't pursue a better goal. So I was just warning you to allocate your resources. Now, one of the things in this book is it talks a lot about taxes, which have not been a big part of my life at all yet, but I can see how they will be in the future, so it's interesting to learn about. What it says here is, this is really interesting and also kind of depressing. It says, by working harder, you simply increase the amount of taxes taken by the government. Most people work from January all the way to May just for the government. Now, I just thought that was crazy. It kind of makes me really motivated to work harder and find ways, I guess, work for myself. When it says, work harder, like by working harder, you simply increase the amount of taxes. What it means by that is if you, work harder at like a standard job, where if you work harder and make more money, then your taxes go up just as equally. So it's really, you work harder, you end up getting paid more, but also a lot of that, also more of it goes to the government. So the book is really encouraging you to find better ways of spending your time and energy instead of just, nose to the ground and work. And then you realize, from January to May, that's all that money's going to the government. All right, this one's really good and thought-provoking. Probably my favorite part of chapter 2 of Rich Dad Poor Dad. It says, wealth is a person's ability to survive so many number of days. Or, if I stopped working today, how long could I survive for? Now, that's just interesting. I never thought of it that way. I've also heard that wealth is a ratio of, how much you make versus how much you spend. I talked about that a little bit in the last video. But a person's ability to survive a number of days forward, without work. And you're like, oh yeah, that's kind of true. That checks out. And there's a question about this that I'll get to later on. This next one is really good, and I see it all the time. It's that people can be very intelligent and still be illiterate when it comes to finances. They learned how to work hard for money, but not to have their money work for them. And I see this a lot, even, my small sphere of, influence on people I know, is that there's really, really smart people that I know who are geniuses in their own way, but they can't apply, these smarts, I guess, and so it becomes something a little bit more useful, like money or something like that. But they're geniuses, but they don't know how to allocate their resources and use it wisely. So they're not dumb at all. They're definitely smarter than the average person, but it doesn't necessarily transfer over into the bank account. Alright, like I said before, my favorite part about the book is at the end of each chapter, there's a little summary overview, and then also some questions to answer about it. And this is one of the questions, also kind of one of the quotes or something like that. I quoted a little bit before this. It says, how many days forward could you survive if you stop working a day? Does that number frighten or surprise you? And I was thinking about it. I was like, oh, this doesn't necessarily apply to me. I still live with my parents at home. I don't have to worry about this yet. But then I started thinking and wondering more, what if I didn't have them around and I had to, fend for myself, I guess. And I realized I wouldn't be able to last very long, which is motivating to definitely hop on the horse and get going. And when you think of it that way, you think of it's kind of just thought-provoking. It's kind of what I mean to say, is that if you didn't have anyone to look out for you, then you gotta start going. Listen to this one podcast that says, live as if your father was dead. Like your father, the person is supposed to, provide for your family or something like that. Live as if that person is dead. Not necessarily, in some ways, don't ignore them or whatever. But in your work life, yes, live that way and hop on a horse and get grinding. But with financial intelligence, you're not just working super hard and then all your money is going to the government and taxes are taking like a huge chunk of your income. Alright, that's it for this video and this little segment of my thoughts and reflections, applications of Chapter 2 of Rich Dad Poor Dad. I'll see you in another video. I'm going to take a quick break between making these videos on Rich Dad Poor Dad and kind of doing more updating video of how things are going in my life right now. Some pretty cool things are happening right now, and it's definitely motivating, and I can't wait to make more videos. So I'll see you in the next one. Have a good day.